wasn't planning on filming today, but I feel like my makeup looks really cute, and it seemed like a waste not to. I I have made quite a few really dumb beauty purchases over the years, but here are 10 that I thankfully avoided. Now, the rest of these aren't in any particular order, but there is one that just stands out so far above the rest. And this is the Kat Von D Everlasting Liquid Lipstick. This was back in 2015 when Kat Von D was not too problematic, at least in the public consciousness. But to make it even worse, the particular shade that I was very interested in was Mother, which is sort of a cool toned dark pink. It's a very pretty shade. I think it would be quite flattering on my skin tone. But this is the shade that originally Miss Von D herself wanted to name Selection with a K. And I don't really want to be the blonde, green-eyed white girl who's looking really good in the shade called Selection from a Nazi. Goodness, I'm really glad that I chose not to do that. I'd feel terrible about that purchase now if I had. Keeping on the subject of liquid lips, the ColourPop liquid lipsticks, their matte formula, when they very first came out, I really wanted this shade called Marshmallow. It was a gray shade with a bit of lilac. Now, I know we just talked about how cool-toned pink looks good on me. I never saw Marshmallow actually look flattering on anyone. I mean, for some people, flattering is not the goal, and it did look cool, as in interesting, not as in cool-toned, though that too. But I think on me, it would be past looking like a corpse. This would look like a corpse that had been reanimated and then died again. It was gonna be a really, really bad look. And even though I told myself that it's like, oh, it was like, what, $6 or $7? I think there's 7 now. I think they were 6 then, but don't quote me on that. I told myself that was like cheap enough that I could experiment, but I absolutely would have tried this on once, immediately taken her off, tried it again, and tossed it. There's no way this would have been good. Now, speaking of really unflattering lipstick on me, MAC Velvet Teddy. Now, this was like the Kylie Jenner lip back in 2016, and I feel like all of the YouTubers had it, and they all talked about how universally flattering it was. And I don't think it was. It was quite a warm-toned light brown. And I ended up buying what Tati had said was a dupe. The Wet n Wild, I believe it was called Bare It All. Though, I'll check that, and there'll be a correction up here if I was totally off. So, I bought this. I looked awful in it, just truly awful. But you know what? My thought was not, hey, I'm really fair and really cool toned. Maybe that lipstick that looks fantastic on these YouTubers who are probably a couple shades darker than me and quite a bit more warm toned than I am. Maybe it's just not meant for me. No, my thought was maybe the Wet n Wild dupe wasn't as much of a dupe as I thought it was. Maybe I should go get the MAC one. Thankfully, I didn't do that. But, oh my goodness. That would have been such a dumb purchase. 2016 Iris, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Oh, here's another 2016 potential purchase. A Wet n Wild Vault. Now this wasn't a true vault as we see them now that had just every shade in the range. This had, I believe, 8 or 9 of the Wet n Wild Mega Last lipsticks. And mind you, this was after I had tried Baradol, and Baradol was one of the lipsticks. So I was like, oh, this still seems like it'd be a good deal. I'd get 7 lipsticks. But there were like 2 more that I knew I wouldn't wear. And now it was costing about as much to get the set as it would have to pick 5 lipsticks individually and actually get colors I wanted. So yeah, thankfully I talked myself out of it, mostly because I was like, if you buy 8 lipsticks, you have to get rid of a couple, and I wasn't willing to do that. So yeah, thank goodness for that. I think we've talked about the really dumb lip purchases I managed to avoid. Now let's move to face. The first one, I don't know why Wet n Wild comes up so much on this list. The Wet n Wild Mist in the coconut scent. Now I like coconut scent, love it, don't even want to think about how many various little Bath and Body Works travel sprays I've used up in, you know, all their coconut sets that say they're different and seasonal but are definitely the same scent every year. But I own a Wet n Wild setting mist, and while it's quite nice, I've had it for like 3 years and I haven't used it up. I don't have a need for setting spray, really. I certainly do not have a need for 2, which is what I have right now. Why did I think that adding a 3rd one, but this time in a scented version, because that's a good thing to spray on my acne-prone skin, is some alcohol with perfume in it. That was just a bad idea. I'm so glad I didn't go through with it. Now, I know this second face product would have been a stupid purchase, but I think I still would have been tempted if I ran into it today. And this is a Bare Minerals, sort of a starter pack trio. It had one of their mineral blushes, a bronzer, and I believe a setting powder or a highlight. I'm not 100% sure how it would have performed on me personally. Now, I don't look good in bronzer. Just, I can't figure out how to make it look nice on me. I have blushes. This one would have been a pink. I like pink, but I have it. And I'm not sure that the highlighter would have looked good on me either. I still thought it was a good idea to buy a trio. Actually, it would have been a duo in my case because the bronzer was not going to work out for me. For 15 bucks, and you got these tiny little pots. Like, if I really did like that setting powder or that blush, I would have gone through them. And yeah, that was a bad plan. I'm gonna keep saying I'm glad I didn't go through with it. Maybe that should just be the title of this video. Now for 3 eyeshadow palettes. The first one, and probably the least familiar to people on here, will be the BH Cosmetics Royal Affair. Now, I admit I was kind of brought in by the theme of this one. It was, I think, just before the royal wedding, and then I wasn't particularly interested in that. I thought the theme was cute, the packaging was pretty. Around the eyeshadows there was sort of an iridescent to hollow, like a film. And I thought that the colors were pretty. Now, I was lucky enough that to find a tester for this palette, and there was so much glitter fallout from this. It was just, I remember swiping it on my hand and just very lightly dusting over, and it just spread all over my hand. It just flew. and I knew that wasn't going to work out for me. Also, when I finally saw it in person, I realized just how neutral the palette was. I think there were really about 4 pops of color, a green and a pink and a periwinkle blue that were all matte, and then there was a periwinkle shimmer. Now, I like the idea of periwinkle blue eyeshadow, but I'm not sure I ever would have actually used it, or used it enough to justify it. And all of the other colors I had, they were just a bunch of warm mattes, couple of cool mattes, and shimmer neutrals. So it wouldn't have been a super dumb purchase. I mean, I'm sure that I would have used it. There's a reason I own those colors. It's because I like them. But was it necessary for me to buy a second version? No, sure wasn't. The second palette, or really set of palettes I'm going to talk about, are the Lorac Unzipped and Unzipped Gold. Now, Unzipped Gold, to me, looks so much like the ColourPop Going for the Gold palette that I anti-hauled not so long ago. That'll be up in the cards. And I have the same reservations about the Unzipped Gold as I did about that palette. This is very much, at least for me, a one-trick pony. I could do a gold eye with some brown. Yeah, I don't need to spend $35 to do that. I could buy 1 or 2 gold shadows and I have browns. I'm good to go. The original Lorac Unzipped is a little bit of a different story. Now, I like this color scheme in the pan, but I've never been super into rosy eyeshadows. I remember seeing this on Emily Noel and thinking it was just gorgeous, and she recommended, I believe still recommends, this particular palette quite highly, but I wouldn't have used it enough to justify $35. I know that now. I think realistically, at that point in my life, when I was 21 probably, what I would have done is used the 4 leftmost shades, which are just sort of light, neutral shimmer colors. Probably would have used those up, gotten little to no use out of the browns and just deeper shades towards the right of the palette, and I would have decluttered it after using 3 of the shadows. And while that's probably not the worst thing that could happen to a palette, I think it would have gotten a decent amount of use, and I'm fairly certain I would have panned at least 3 of those shadows. I don't think it was a good use of $35, and if I'm gonna buy a high-end palette, I want to be able to use every single shade and really get my money out of it. Now, this last palette, I'm almost certain doesn't exist anymore, and I kind of think that maybe NYC as a brand doesn't exist anymore. Let me know if I'm wrong with that, but I tried to look them up online a couple years ago, and it seemed like their site was just abandoned. So what I'm talking about is the NYC Lovatics palette. Yes, in collaboration with Demi Lovato, for reasons that I'm unsure of. She was linked to NYC, and they felt they needed to put her on their naked knockoff. This was clearly enough a very close dupe for the original Naked palette, and I knew at probably 20 at maybe 21 at this point, that I could not afford a $45 Naked palette. I think they're even more now. Still can't afford it, but at that point I was certain that I couldn't afford it. However, every tutorial, it seemed like I saw on YouTube, used the Naked palette, and it seemed that it was really the standby in the makeup community, and everyone had it, everyone used it, everyone loved it. Except for the occasional person who preferred the Naked 2, but we don't talk about them, even though I absolutely am cool toned enough that Naked 2 would have flattered me more. I didn't understand undertones back then either. Yeah, so I thought this was a good deal. It was like $5. And you know what? I have the same qualms with this one that I had about the Lorac Unzipped. I would have used up 2 shimmery shades, and then I would have tossed this. And that's a lot of plastic waste, and it's a waste of money if you only use 2 shades. Yeah, that was a weird collaboration now that I think about it. But somehow it didn't seem so at the time. Here's where my heart kind of hurts. The 2 CoverGirl collections that came out when I was in college. The Star Wars collection that came out with The Force Awakens, and the Hunger Games, I think, Capital Couture collection. So I like Star Wars. I'm guessing that you can see that. And no, I was not planning to wear this to film. I just was wearing this anyway and started filming this video. Yeah, these were just ugly. Like, the Star Wars collection had glittery lipsticks in like really hideous colors. Like there was a blue glittery one, there was like a gold and a silver glittery one. They looked awful. Even in the promotional images, they didn't look that good. And the other items they came out with were like nail polishes, which were fine, I'm guessing. I mean, I've always felt like CoverGirl has kind of expensive nail polishes for the drugstore, and I've never heard that good of things about them, so not sure about that. And it had these mascaras that just like had quotes from the movie on them, but were otherwise the exact same mascara they always came out with, but like $2 more expensive or something. So, yeah, that was pretty worthless collection, and I'm glad I didn't pick up anything. My inner fangirl needs to be stopped sometimes. And same thing with the Hunger Games collaboration. I want to say that this was a little more attractive. I think they had some eyeshadow palettes with some really fun, pretty colors in them. But, again, this was 21-year-old me. I wasn't going to be wearing any bright eyeshadow. I did neutral all over the lid every day when I was in college. So there's some purchases I managed to avoid. Thank goodness for that. And now hopefully I have learned my lesson from this video and won't be making dumb purchases in the future. But we'll see. I don't really have that much faith in myself. Hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you'll consider liking and subscribing if you want to see more budget-conscious beauty and sometimes fashion content. And I hope to see you next time. See ya!